What didn't you know about a video game until way later? In Bioshock, you could freeze machines before hacking them, so that the water moved more slowly. In the original Super Mario Bros. After a game over, if you hold A and press start, you start at the first level of whatever world you died in. I do not know how to process 25 years of mad in one instant. So many hours lost. That a PS2 required a memory card. I was 6, I believe, when Spider-Man 2 came out, and my mom would only let me play on the weekends for 2 to 3 hours. This was my first video game on the PS2, and my parents were not very tech savvy and didn't know much about the console. Therefore, anytime I played, I would essentially keep restarting the game every weekend. I remember one weekend my grandmom came over, and my mom lost track of time, and essentially I finished the game in one day, knowing what to do through my past playthroughs. I essentially speedrun Spider-Man 2 every week. One of the best memories of my childhood. I remember knowing I needed one, so I didn't want to get too far playing the first game I rented until I got one. Well, I got lost in the game and played for hours, but wasn't going to be able to get a card until the next day. Tried calling my neighbor to borrow his, but that a-hole wouldn't let me make a quick save. The game was Kessen. If you wear the bunny hood in Ocarina of Time, the skeletons in Hyrule Field will not appear. My brother beat Skyrim without ever knowing you could sprint. That you can just hold down the drink water button in Fallout. You're kidding me. In my first playthrough of Morrowind, I A. didn't know that killing certain characters broke the main quest. B. didn't know that if your bounty exceeded a certain amount, guards stopped giving options to pay it off. You could join the Thieves Guild and get it paid off that way, but by the time I found that out, I had already killed off the majority of Morrowind's population. It wasn't until Halo 3 that I realized I've been playing oddball with Captain Key's skull from Combat Evolved. Wait, what? The skull ball in the game type oddball belongs to Captain Keyes from Halo Combat Evolved. You can see the neural implant in the back of the skull. In my copy of The Art of Halo by Eric Trautmann, the developers state that originally Master Chief was gonna use a flamethrower to burn the skull out of the flood mass that had absorbed Captain Keyes. But with the removal of the flamethrower from the console version, the skull was never used in the campaign, but found its way into oddball. That player 2 can control the ducks in Duck Hunt. RimWorld. It takes longer to get a full night's sleep on stone beds. Double walls insulate temperature better. Butchering in the same room as a kitchen causes food poisoning. Exposed wires cause a minor beauty debuff. Darkness negatively affects walking speed and work speed. While I knew this, also temperature, no time saved. If you put the kitchen in the freezer, for some reason I never considered that the debuffs apply while mining. Everyone has a secret inventory that picks up dirt, sand, etc. Dogs do not, and will not drag filth into your base. I don't know why, but when I first got the game, I guess I was overwhelmed a bit by the UI and didn't notice some of the messages. I thought that corpses randomly appearing in the base was some kind of weird feature. I didn't realize until way later that my colonists were going crazy and digging up the graves because they had to eat without a table. In Pokemon, the burn status lowers your attack stat. Didn't know until Rotom Dex brought it up in us/. Yeah, there are a few conditions in battle with multiple effects, sometimes more important than the primary effect. Burn halves attack, though it has no effect on special attack, and Pokemon with the Guts ability have their attack increase by half instead of decrease. Guts actually gives plus 50% attack, no matter which of these conditions a Pokemon has, but people usually pair it with Burn, because it nullifies the debuff, so all you have to deal with is the damage like a powered up life orb. Normal poison deals 1/8 of the afflicted's HP, while the bad poison you get from moves like Toxic deal only 1/16 at first, but does an additional 1/16 for each turn it's active, until that Pokemon is switched out, in which case the timer resets when it switches back in. Paralysis of course makes it a 25% chance whether the Pokemon will move or not, but it also halves their speed stat. freeze on its own has no special effects, but there's a handful of moves that the frozen Pokemon can use to thaw itself out, and if the opponent hits it with a fire type move, or Scald, it'll thaw. Sleep's similar to freeze, though its special effects are probably the best well known, because it's the only situation where a Pokemon can use sleep talk or snore. Rain gives plus 50% damage to water type moves, and minus 50% to fire, but it also guarantees that thunder and hurricane will hit, and halves the damage of solar beam. There's also Primal Kyogre's variation, that causes fire type moves to fail completely. Sun is flips around the damage modifiers to water and fire damage, and instead lets you use solar beam in one turn, and lowers the accuracy of hurricane. Primal Groudon has its own version of Sun that causes water type moves to fail. Sandstorms increase the special defense of rock types by 50%. Hail guarantees that blizzard will hit. All of these weather effects change how effective certain healing moves are. That isn't even getting into most of the abilities that activate under these conditions either. I'm pretty sure there's something similar to Guts that increases speed instead, but it's not as useful, and I've never seen anyone really use it. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. Bulbapedia probably has much more, and I may be a little inaccurate if they changed some effects in Gen 7, and I haven't really touched competitive play since Saurus, but oh well. In Fallout New Vegas you can just talk to one of the front desk people, and they'll let you meet/kill Benny in his room. Learned it this year, and have played that game since day one. I played New Vegas as a female. If you have the Black Widow perk you can seduce him, and kill him in his sleep. I got a funny story for this one. When I was a kid I rented Final Fantasy on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Back then when you rented a game, getting an instruction manual in the rental case was like winning the fucking lotto. So understanding how to actually play a game was mostly trial and error. For a little kid, FF was pretty complex. I had the game for a few days and loved the shit out of it, but remembered it being really hard. I took it back and then didn't play it again until I was an early teen. Funny enough, when I originally rented it, I went through a good 10 to 20 hours of playtime not knowing you could actually equip weapons. I'd just beat the monsters using the character's bare fist punches. The game was much easier the second time through. In GTA 5 holding F while driving will put your seatbelt on. Saves a lot of headaches of flying through the window on every collision. Press F to save a life. That always annoyed me so much I even googled it and still didn't find out, but I know the trick where if you right click while unarmed and aim out the window they will roll the window down, so you don't mash it every time. The existence of the one singular human that comes up as red enemy in all of the Halo games to date. In Halo 3, Odds the police cop with the shotgun who follows you in the tunnels before meeting up with Bear is corrupt and did some pretty bad stuff, and if you follow him to sub-level 9 and go with him a room he says to not enter he will try to kill you. This is why Virgil kills him and says crime doesn't pay. I've been replaying Halo for so long and never knew this. I was so dumbfounded when I found out, simply because there is a human that attacks you without provocation and came up on the radar as an enemy in Halo. In Wind Waker, you can insta-kill the plant boss if you pour the island's holy water on it. I went through a large portion of the main quest in Oblivion without knowing you could fast travel. It actually helped the immersion quite a bit. I bought Oblivion when I was a teenager, and my brother changed the difficulty to the highest level when I wasn't looking. I gave up on it because I couldn't even get past the little demons guarding the gate in Kvatch. After a little while, he told me what he had done and showed me how to change it back. I literally had no idea that it had changeable difficulty and thought I had just bought a crazy hard game. Playing Bioshock Infinite I went through the whole game not knowing you could show an arrow to where you need to go if you get lost. I spent a solid 3 hours stuck in the lift station walking in circles. I only found this out from a tip on a loading screen, and of course it was on the loading screen at the very end of the game. I was furious because that world helped in so many places, and having just unlocked 1999 mode I decided to try it out and see what this magic arrow world been like and how it world helped. Started the game first opportunity I had to try it out, and navigation. Arrow is not available in 1999 mode. Still have no idea what it looks like. That you can lock onto enemies in Dark Souls. Beat it hitting air a lot of times nevertheless. I thought you could only catch legendary Pokemon with a Master Ball. So after I caught one I'd just go around and beat the rest. I did this playing through the first and second generation Pokemon games. Super Mario Bros. 3. I didn't know you could pick up the turtle shells. Only really relevant because I hated the desert level where there was an angry sun that would chase you around. Took me forever to finally beat that level. Some 15 years later, I was watching a friend play Super Mario Bros. 3 and was wondering how he'd do on that level. He just casually jumps on a turtle, picks up the shell, and throws it at the sun, knocking it out of the sky. I felt like such an idiot. In Fallout 4 I didn't know that you could choose mostly anything on the perk chart once you obviously had the credentials. I thought you had to unlock the perks row by row. So all my perks were maximumed out in the first row and I expected the second row to be unlocked, but it didn't unlock. I thought the game was broken and was furious when I found out I didn't have to go through all that trouble. I played the game very differently than everybody else did. By the time I figured this shit out I already beat the main quest line and a bunch of other major side missions. I started a new player and strangely got bored of the game and moved on to something else. I was so enamored with Breath of the Wild as someone who dislikes hand holding in games. As soon as I got off the plateau I was like, fuck this, I do what I want, and set off wandering. I never found Hetsu or even went to the village until 2 Divine Beasts in, so I didn't know you could expand your inventory. If you enjoy these videos please consider subscribing.